All right, so welcome to the miracle work. I'm happy that you're here, and today we continue with the chapters, with chapter 3 to be specific. And now chapter 3 is all about retraining the mind. And it's like, why would I want to do that? Why would I want to retrain the mind? Why is that good for? And so one of the reasons that it's good for is if you don't train your mind, then everything will stay exactly the same. Like everything will just be a repetition of itself. So that means that when you train your mind, you actually have a possibility to step out of patterns and habits that are not helpful to you. But you're just in the habit of doing it and repeating it, perpetuating it. For instance, one of the ideas is perpetuating past ideas into the future. What about that? So maybe you can bring something to your memory in terms of, oh yeah, oh, I always do this. Oh, yeah. So there's one thing for sure that you do, that you're in a certain situation, and what is it that you think you think the outcome might be exactly the same? Well, does that sound familiar? Yes, it does. For sure, it does. So it's good to be aware of that, and it's good to train your mind to not do that, to say retrain it in a whole different way, that you're actually making right use of your mind instead of abusing your mind with thinking that the past will be the same as the future, that there's no other possibility. Now, since this is a miracle work class and we're actually applying the, say, that what is given in A Course in Miracles, to be specific, the urtext manuscripts of A Course in Miracles, as it came down to Helen Schuckman, so to speak, when she was writing everything down in 8 years. So the thing that happened then is there's such thing as a miracle mindedness, and there's such thing as a right mindedness. And this right mindedness is in fact that which keeps you out of, say, previous patterns that you were used to. It prevents you from falling into the same lesson or same trap all the time. And that is really what makes this different. So retraining your mind, you will have to pay attention. It is, you have actually a possibility of stepping out of the habit of the old, the habit of human identity, the habit of thinking that you're in a timeline and that you maybe have 80, 90 years to live and that's it. And then you try it again some other lifetime. And more and more and more. Our thinking, well, like once you get started with this, I cannot stop. So let's take it easy today. So it's actually that you discover the capabilities that you see yourself have, like you recognize in yourself, like I'm able to do this, I'm able to do that, I'm actually pretty good at this and that. We will see in the next chapter, in this chapter in fact, in the next section of it, that all these capabilities, all these special talents, all these special abilities that you have are just a very pale reflection of what you can do in truth. In other words, you do a little, you see a little here in your humanhood, in your ideas about yourself. You see just a tiny bit of what you are actually capable of in terms of loving, creating, and being. So that is huge, in fact, what's being offered. So if you're satisfied with where you find yourself, and you think like, well, it's all right, I live this life, it's all right, then this is not the course for you. This is not the meeting for you to be in. But if you say like, what did you just tell me about possibilities, or about what are the real, say, undoubtful capacities of myself, not as a superego, but as an extension of the love of God. What am I capable of? How is that going to look? How will that feel? So this is a bit where we say we'll take a look at today. And the chapter section is called Conflict and the Ego. Now, you might say like, well, I don't have an ego any longer. So that's interesting. So that's wonderful. If you don't have an ego, then you, yeah, what are you doing here then? So how do you know that you have an ego? So we might bump up against that today. You might discover that there's a bit of rudimentary, like a little part of you that you could call ego. And it's not that we're going to incredibly observe it or study the ego or anything like this. No, we do taking a look at for a very specific reason. It's all in the light of retraining your mind. Retraining your mind to the proper use of it, to the whole-minded use of it, to the right-minded, miracle-minded, however you want to call it, use of it. So in that sense, it's very beneficial. In that sense, it is like a healing proposal that is being given to you, a healing capability, a healing offering that, and to heal is to make happy. So it's like a possibility for you to discover something new in which you open a whole door of happiness inside of you that you had no idea about. Okay, so that's my little motivational introduction to keep listening and not turning me off or leaving the meeting. No, you should stay. It's really great. And it's all about you. This is not about someone else. So it works the best, I could say. Like, if you want to enjoy this meeting the most, you might as well just equate yourself with what you could call an ego mind. And you will see why. All right. So I prepared some visuals for this that I'm going to use to make this a real beautiful, freshly structured meeting, and that will keep you right on the edge of your seat. Wow, I'm really going for it, am I? Well, I cannot do this without you. We might as well laugh about it too. It's like the ego story is such a sad story, and the conflict story is so old, just as old as this, say, dusty old world, that it's time now to start laughing about the occurrences on top of it. It's ridiculous. So let's just get the broom and get the dust out of our mindset, okay? So here we are. Conflict and the ego, part 1, because there's going to be a continuation of this theme, I can tell you that. And you say like, well, that's not necessary. We can brush this off quickly. And I say, no, we're not. So it's going to take a couple of parts. Who knows? So here, conflict and ego, that's the title. And since we all, as real egos, enjoy conflict and do everything we can to stay in it, this is not all going to be like friendly or nice information for the ego. Anyway, so we're just getting started. So here's about our abilities, because I promised you something. So most of the abilities man now possesses are only shadows of his real strengths. Yeah, of course. Like most of the abilities man now possesses are only shadows, not even light, but shadows of his real strengths. The soul, this is our, say, our altar. The soul knows, loves, and creates, and these are its unequivocal functions. So the soul knows, loves, creates. Like everything that you would love to do or to be is the soul. These are its unequivocal functions. Like they're undoubted. There's no doubt about the functions of the soul in that. Communicating directly with source, this flows naturally out of it. There's no obstacle, no resistance, no anything that's in the way to fully let that flow. And this is the soul. This is you as the soul. All of the functions of man are equivocal, so they're full of doubt. So they're open to question or doubt. All the functions of man are equivocal. And if you take a look at the last hour that you were looking at yourself or had some ideas about yourself, you might definitely confirm that. Am I going to do this? Am I going to wear these clothes? Am I going to put my camera on or off? Shall I say something or not? All this stuff that's going on in your mind. So it's always questioning, doubting, not certain at all. This is because he can no longer be certain how he will use them, these functions, because he doubts them if he has them. You doubt if you have certain abilities and functions. You doubt all these things as a human being, as your ego mind, which is like I said, just equate yourself with the ego and you have a blast of a time. He's therefore incapable of knowledge because he's uncertain. He literally questions everything. He is also incapable of true loving because he can perceive lovelessly. He cannot create surely because perception deceives and illusions are not pure. He cannot create surely because perception deceives and illusions are not pure. Like I said, this is not the greatest for the ego mind to hear this. Like, it literally questions everything. What am I? What am I supposed to do now? Where am I going? Why is this happening? Who is this person? Am I supposed to love? Am I anything? Can I do this? Am I capable of doing this? You know, all these considerations that every human being on this planet has continuously reinventing himself all the time. I'm really good at that. I'm not so good at that. I'm not sure if I want to do that. You know, all of this consideration, reinvention, analysis, comparisons, competition. I'm really better at this than he is. I'm better at it than she is. I'm more pretty than she is. I'm more whatever. You know, this does not stop. So it is uncertain about everything. Do you think I still have an ego? Well, if you ask that question, what do you think? Say, the ego is not capable of knowing. The ego mind is not capable of knowing because it doubts everything. How would it know anything for sure if it doubts everything and questions everything? Now, the other thing that I really did not like to hear is this, is like the ego is like human being, you as a human being, is able to look at things lovelessly. That was a bit of an ouch to me. I don't know how is that for you. It's like I'm actually capable of looking lovelessly. That's not so great to hear that, because okay, I do that, but why would you have to say that out loud? I'd rather not talk about it. I'd rather not talk about it. So, yeah, it's like isn't it great? Isn't it great to be able to take a look at the pitiful ego, the pitiful you in this human existence, questioning everything and at the same time laughing about it? Isn't it lovely? I really love that. I think that's great. You know, it's like, what else are you going to do with it? Take it serious? Oh, come on. You know, that's not necessary. So, we heard some things about our beautiful, not so beautiful ego mind, questioning everything, having no clue who he is, being doubtful about every step, and not knowing where to move, backwards, forward, up, down, all of this. Equating itself, reinventing itself, analyzing itself, comparing itself, being naturally in competition with itself and others that it perceives, being able to look at things lovelessly. All of this is the pitiful ego, you. And don't tell me that you don't do these things. I know you do. Yeah, I know you do. So you have conflict about it. And that's why we take a look at it. And it's not to confirm it and keep holding on to it. No, this is about retraining the mind. Let's not forget the purpose of all of this. It's like retraining your mind. Retraining your mind. Oh yeah, okay. So I think we're ready for the next visual. So I just try to go through it in the right pace, well, not skipping anything. See, we love to hear about the soul, who knows and loves and creates, and this is great. Like, it has no doubt about anything, it just knows what it is. That's great stuff. But then going back into our little room, into our little backyard of ourselves, we see that man's functions are equivocal. It's open to question and doubt, incapable of knowledge, it's highly uncertain, incapable of true loving because it can perceive lovelessly. He cannot create surely because perception deceives and illusions are not pure. No, that makes sense. So perception, talking about perception, perception did not exist until the separation had introduced degrees, aspects, and intervals. Before that was not the case. So it has degrees, aspects, intervals, time intervals, aspects like varieties of qualities, degrees like high, low, high consciousness, low consciousness, high this, high that. Going back down below to the soul level. Oh, there's no level. The soul has no levels. And all conflict arises from the idea, from the concept of levels. Wars arise when some regard others as if they were on a different level. And don't tell me that doesn't happen today. Absolutely, it does happen today. Where is that originating? in someone's mind. Whose? Mine. Yeah. All interpersonal conflicts arise from this fallacy. Sorry. The interpersonal conflicts. So do you have any conflicts with anyone? Is anyone free of that? You can raise your hand. Is anyone free of it? Okay, never mind. Interpersonal conflicts arise from the idea of different levels. Now this is interesting. So that does not stop. Let's get out of this for just a second. So the levels is interesting because even in a spiritual awakening story, in a transformational journey, in a transformational process, we're talking about levels. Higher, lower. You have a higher consciousness, you have a lower consciousness. He was a very bright teacher, he was okay teacher, he was this and that. It's like we're comparing all the time. That is a really bright teacher. What he's saying is making so much sense. Yes. So it's like it's still all based on an idea of perception. So yeah, that's in that sense that needs to dissolve, right? Otherwise we keep comparing and we keep making analysis of who is better than who and what and why and all this. It's like this is where wars begin about different levels. That's a different quality of people. That's a different quality of, if you behave like that, then you are this and that. You know, all the comparisons that you see in this place originate from an idea of differences in levels, which on a soul level have no reality whatsoever. In other words, see, you can't stop your mind from doing that. Naturally, it's comparing. But it can be retrained. And that's why we are here in this procedure, like in the miracle procedure of retraining the mind to discover, that you're doing it, admitting it. It's like, yes, I'm doing that. I walk through the supermarket. I literally have like a judgment about everyone that is there. I can tell you stories about everyone while I never met them and highly have doubts about myself. Like I've doubts about myself, but I know for sure about this person. You know, stuff like this. So it's like you have to recognize it and admit it. Like, oh my God, look at what the mind is doing. So the retraining is then really great. So how do we retrain this mind? So we used a lot, for instance, the review of the first 50 lessons. Like nothing I see means anything. I've given everything I see, all the meaning that it has for me. Does it have a meaning? No, it does not. I'm recognizing that it's just in a way for me to have, say, look with Christ vision. It is only in the way, and I can fill my day with it. I can share 100,000 pictures of it. I can become viral in showing the world the differences that I see. And it does not change how I perceive. So you don't have to do that, in other words. Here you are. This is an opportunity to come to a whole different vision, a Christ vision. Okay, so we'll keep that in mind. We're continuing. So only the levels of Trinity are capable of unity. So there's only one case where the levels of Trinity, where the levels make sense. So what does that mean? Levels of Trinity, like the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, right? And those three are one. And they are not the same. Like the Father is not the same as the Son. But the Son is a whole part of the Father. But the Father created the Son and the Holy Spirit as a bridge between the two. So that's why these are levels that you can actually see at work but at the same time, in the experience of you being the Son of God, you say, feel the unity with your Father and with Spirit. That is interesting, isn't it? So that's the only place where you can actually experience that, where levels make sense. The levels which man created by the separation are disastrous. They cannot but conflict. This is because one is essentially meaningless to the other. So here we are, see, with the meaningful, meaningless idea. So the levels which man created by the separation are disastrous. They cannot but conflict. This is because one is essentially meaningless to the other. So you're comparing two things where one is meaningless in your vision of it and the other is everything. So, yeah, there you go. In our picture, wait, are we? Yeah, we're good. In our picture of the psyche, there's an unconscious level which properly consists only of the miracle ability and should be under my direction, and the conscious level which perceives or is aware of impulses from both the unconscious and the superconscious. All right, so this is a nice comparison. Wait a minute, where's my little... In our picture of the psyche, there's an unconscious level which consists only of the miracle ability and should be under my direction. Okay, so let's take a look at this. So in our way of looking at the psyche, like your psyche, it is your psychology, not anything else, no psychic capabilities, no, your psychology. The way that you look at yourself has a subconscious level, right? Some things just pop up into your consciousness and you have no idea where they came from, right? So and then you have your superconscious levels. Suddenly you feel lifted and a beautiful bright light comes into your mind. You recognize it's like, wow, that is so beautiful. So you actually are able to register it in your consciousness. Now Jesus says here in the Course in Miracles is like this subconscious level, that the level that you don't, that you're not conscious of, is in fact where the miracle ability is, where the miracles reside, you could say, where miracles can come to the surface. But since that is not a conscious doing of you, you receive guidance to let that come up in the right time, under the right conditions, so that can come into your consciousness in a whole different way. Now, how does this relate to what we have heard just before? And I just saw it. I hope you see it too. It's like this. Like our consciousness and the use of mind as we are used to as a human being, as an ego mind, is one of repetition, of getting used to patterns, making it easy for ourselves. Like, yeah, I know what that is about, without looking at it, for instance. You already know what it's about and you know how to respond to it. Like, this is what you naturally do. You become habitual, because without habits you would be thinking about every step along the way. No, you like the automatic pilot of the mind. Like, oh, that goes this way. Yes, I know. Yeah, I know, without looking at it. Yes, I know what the answer is to that, how to respond to that. Yes, I know, I know. Yes, I know. This is what you hear a human being say a lot. It's like, it doesn't want to learn anything new because it wants to, say, relax into the automatic, in the autopilot of your consciousness. Now the miracle mind works a little different, because you should actually let yourself be guided for it. It's like, am I supposed to perform this miracle? And a miracle is not defined yet. It is not a concept. It's not defined yet. It's not put into form yet. But it has a capability to create a situation that is actually going to be helpful to you. But if you would think of it, it would lose all its meaning. That's why it's under Jesus' guidance. By his inspiration, this comes to you. How that exactly works doesn't really matter. But it's good to know that when you think this miracle needs to work out this way, it is no longer a miracle. It is something of your conscious doing. No, this comes from your unconscious and comes to the surface. You feel there's a possibility. And you ask for guidance. Show me which miracle to perform when. That would be your daily prayer in the morning. It's like, show me which miracles to perform today. So now this subconscious thing comes into your awareness, comes into your consciousness, and can be used to, say, open up a new scenario that was not there before. It is brand new, and it's actually going to be helpful to you in order to become open to your super consciousness, so that it's like suddenly there's a connection with your super consciousness, with your God consciousness, and you in your consciousness. So you experience a vertical shift of awareness. We know this from the miracle principles. It's like a sudden shift from the horizontal into the vertical plane. Did you do that? No. Did you create that? No. Have you any idea how that's supposed to look? No, you don't know. Great. This is exactly where this can be a miracle. So that means now there's an opportunity for you to experience something else that is actually helpful, and it's allowing you to heal, to become happy, to feel the opening and the restoration, like the remembrance of the proper place of you in this whole story that you're in. So it has to do with the dream. It makes it clear that you're the dreamer, but that you have, say, special help coming from your subconscious, a miracle, creating a situation that you could not have come up with, but it actually is the only one that can actually help you out of this that you found yourself in a moment ago. Well, this is about the most clear I can express what happens during the miracle procedure. And also to give this subconscious an interesting, say, look, because it is interesting. So the fact that you have a different option means that, and here's the retraining, like the fact that you have a different option is then the automatic pilot of your mind, in which you say, like, yes, I already know, yes, I should do that, is stopped for a moment with, like, okay, special intervention. Wait just a minute before you answer in the, with the automatic pilot, thinking that you already know. Hold your horses just a second. Whoop, there's space for the miracle for you. So this is what we call retraining the mind. This is why we do these exercises. This is why we actually take a look at it in this meeting. Just for that, just for that. And this is exactly why that is happening. I can tell you that. So finally, I can share this clarity with you, since you are able to hear it. 5 minutes ago, it wasn't possible, but now it is. So that's the great thing about the miracle-mindedness. It gives you new opportunities that open new opportunities, that open new opportunities, that open new opportunities. Okay, so let's see. One more time. In our picture of the psyche, of the psychological aspects of ourselves, there is an unconscious level which probably consists only of the miracle ability and should be under my direction, as what Jesus says, and a conscious level which perceives or is aware of impulses from the unconscious and the superconscious, like the God impulse. These are the sources of the impulses it receives, the consciousness receives. Consciousness is thus the level of perception, but not of knowledge. Like it has nothing to do with knowledge. No, this is on the level of perception. Again, to perceive is not to know. It has nothing to do with knowing. The closest it can come to knowing is like to perceive truly. Then the step to knowing becomes very close. Consciousness was the first split that man introduced into himself. Consciousness was the first split that man introduced into himself. He became, here, this is really interesting, he became a perceiver rather than a creator in the true sense. He started to look at things. He started to have ideas about things. Consciousness is correctly identified as the domain of the ego. Yeah. That's where it happens for the ego, right? In consciousness, where it's aware of things. It doesn't like the subconsciousness because it's scary. You never know what pops up. It's like a box of Pandora. And the God impulse is, well, no. The ego likes to sit on the chair of God. So it doesn't need another God. It is God himself. In a sense, the ego was a man-made attempt to perceive himself as he wished, rather than as he is. Wish and ish. That's so different. In a sense, the ego was a man-made attempt to perceive himself as he wished, rather than as he is. Aha. Okay, so now, getting out of this again. I love this. This is like, this is great. So he perceives himself as he wishes. So where is this all to do with? This has all to do with images, with ideas about it, without being it. It is about it. It sells images to itself. It falls in love with images of itself. It falls in love with images of everything that it finds attractive and that it needs to complete itself. You know, this is what the ego does. And look how busy we are with that. No, this car is really part of me. Like, oh yeah, that's really my kind of car. That, yeah, come on. Yes. All right. This house is really the house that, yeah, that's my house. That's really part of me. Yeah, I need a woman like that, or a woman like that, or a man like this. Yes, with this kind of, you know, and all this. I need this kind of money on my bank. I need that for my security because I need to take care of myself. And on and on and on and on. So it makes an image. It tries to create an image of itself and tries to maintain it, hold it together, you know, like it doesn't matter what it costs. We keep this together. Don't touch it. I will protect it. This is my property. This is mine. This is my possession. So we have to make rules about this. So I set up a whole courtyard a whole rule set, a whole, say, basic rules for how to behave to keep this all going. And yeah, and on and on and on. So you see, literally it creates a whole world in order to keep itself in place, to maintain itself. It has to use to set up a whole world with all kinds of separate rules made. It is made to, say, sustain this image of how it wishes itself to see, without looking for one instant to see what it is. Now we, in this miracle work course, you signed up for this, you do this, you discover, well, I've done my wish list. I've done everything that I wished for, and maybe I've still some lingering wishes about how things should be in my optics of it. But I also know now that there's a different way of looking at everything, where it comes down to what is instead of what I wish. I love the words of it too. It's great. So now what? Now what? Now how do we continue this? Because you try to keep both for a while. Your wish list, your wishes, and your issues. Like what is, yeah, I love to have moments in my day where I sink deeply into what is. That's so beautiful. And then boop, I'm popping out of that into my wish list again and see if there's anything left for me to, what would complete my image of myself. Hence, the human being in transition, the human being in a transformational path. So let me know if you recognize any of this. You might. I think it's so common to experience it like this. Anyway, so we continue. So he became a perceiver rather than a creator. Oh yeah, that maybe I should continue about that 1 second. So he became a perceiver. Now what is the trouble with perceiving and not being? Is that you can have ideas about something without, and you think you can think about things without becoming it. And there's where the mistake comes in. So you think that your ideas about yourself are great. You keep them as ideas without thinking that you're that. What do I actually say? I try to express it clearly here. So it's like, actually it comes down to the opposite. What you think, you become. What you think you are. You literally become the expression of conflict if you equate yourself with the ego. Like if you walk around with your wish list the whole day about how things should be and what you want and how it's supposed to look and what you need for that and how you will protect it to maintain it, this is what you become. So in other words, you lose yourself as is. You lose yourself as the essential is that you are. That doesn't need any kind of confirmation, any kind of image, possessiveness, obsession, compulsion, and all this stuff, anxiety that's connected to it, anxiety about losing it. Like, no, you don't need any of that. But you lose that whole story, so to speak. You lose your whole ism. You lose that completely by the things that you walk around with in your wish list. You identify with what you wish. You identify with the life that you are living as an image of yourself. Like, that's inevitable. So that's why this miracle work is maybe not popular. but it's really helpful to use this to retrain your mind. So all the automatic pilot things are confirmed to you by your choice of exposure. Now, for instance, this thing, like this is an smartphone. I don't know if you have one of those, but it might be, I'm just suggesting things. What do I know? It might be that you take a look at it, maybe a couple of hours in the day, in which you see the images confirmed that you would love to be your own. And guess what? They are going to be you. They are becoming you. You literally manifest them by exposing yourself to it. You become it. It literally becomes you. You start to do the same things. You start to want the same things. You start to sink deeply into the hypnosis that you expose yourself to and that you decide to be in and to let yourself be affected by it. So this automatic pilot is making you feel good. It just is very satisfying to expose yourself to images that confirm everything is all right, everything is given to you. Yes, this is your possibility. Here it is. Just take it. Yeah, you need this. Yes, you know you need this. Yeah, I can tell you 20 reasons why you need this, and you will believe me. Oh, you don't believe me right away? Well, that will come too. And before you know it, you become it, and it becomes you. And you forget your is list instead of your wish list. So you lose track, and then something happens because the drug that you have been fed by is not working suddenly. You break out in a cold sweat, thinking that you have missed something, thinking that, well, this was not what they told me it was like. This is not what I want. And there you stumble back into, say, your anxiety and into your depression. It was hollow, it was empty, it didn't do anything. And the automatic pilot tries to look for new patterns, try to use maybe even the artificial intelligence to, well, that's very intelligent to have an automatic pilot tell you the automatic pilot. Oh yeah, this is what you're used to, this is what you want, yes, this is what you want, this is how it looks. So you see, like, there's a big web of automatic pilotism going on in all this. So, and like I said, you look for your toys to get it confirmed. So you invent things for that in order to sustain it. So are we talking here about good and bad? No, we're not talking about good and bad. This is all about, are you allowing your subconscious to show you a miraculous occurrence in your day? Or are you completely relying on the automatic pilot that seems to be ruling you while you invited it to do so? So that's the only question I pose, in fact. Okay, so in a sense, the ego was a man-made attempt to perceive himself as he wished rather than as he is. Yeah. So the ego is the questioning compartment in the post-separation psychology of man, the psyche of man. So the ego is the questioning compartment in the post-separation psyche, which man created for himself. It is capable of asking valid questions, but not... It is capable of asking valid questions, right, yes, but not of perceiving wholly valid answers. What? It is capable of asking valid questions, but not of perceiving wholly valid answers, because they are cognitive and by definition cannot be perceived. They cannot be perceived. The endless speculation about the meaning of mind has led to considerable confusion, because the mind is confused. Only one-mindedness is without confusion. A separate or divided mind must be confused. A divided mind is uncertain by definition. It has to be in conflict because it is out of accord with itself. Oh my. So it is capable, the mind is capable of asking valid questions, yes. So it should not try to come to answers, but not of perceiving wholly valid answers, because these are cognitive and cannot be perceived. So the answers to the questions that you can ask cannot be received by the mind. Oh. And this is where you have a conflict, because you might think you do get the right answers to your questions. See, I told you, you shouldn't have come to this meeting. You should not have done this. Oh, so it's like you can ask valid questions, but you're not able to receive them on the same level as where you ask the questions. And actually, so far, you have been thinking that quite a lot. Am I doing that right? Oh yeah, I'm doing that right. Do you know that for sure? No, of course not. Of course not. You're highly uncertain. In your humanhood, you're highly uncertain. So this is something else, isn't it? It's like you have been relying on this in your upbringing, in your coming to your adulthood, into coming to a great spiritual student. And you might still trust it. You might still trust that you can come up with the right answer to the questions that you can ask. And you still might believe in that. Now, retraining your mind is, say, allowing something new to come to you, allowing yourself to quit the automatic pilot in coming up with answers to your questions. Recognizing that you're not able to receive these answers, not on a cognitive level, not on a, say, psychological level. So that's another part of the, say, retraining of the mind. So we have been quite busy. So, like I said, the valid questions asking, great. Now you wait for an answer to come from your subconscious and being presented to you in a miraculous way instead of anything else. So it's like, that is really still the most important part in our miracle work that we do. Allowing the miracle literally to, say, manifest itself, and asking for it when that is the right moment for that to occur, not by your definition, not by you knowing when what miracle needs to occur and why. Because all these questions you are not able to receive for yourself. The miracle, you're very capable of, say, receiving the miracle for yourself. That's the most natural thing you can do. So, and that relates also then to perceiving lovingly, without an opposite, without an unloving perception. No, this is, in the miracle, you literally recognize your oneness with your brother and with God at the same time, recognizing that you're the dreamer of this dream, but that you allowed something else to occur in that dream. Not of your making, not connected to your ideas, but something brand new and fresh and completely inspired. You know, so that is the offering continuously. Now, I appreciate it very much that you paid so much attention to listening to this. And we continue. This was just part one of conflict and the ego. And you see there were really some areas where there is some conflict. And so to admit that and to, in fact, allow the miracle to occur in those situations, not knowing when and how and why, is going to save you. It's going to help you in a way that you had no idea about. Literally, you had no idea about it. That's why it's helpful. So thank you so much for allowing that, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you so much.